what is found in blood. When we talk about whole blood, that is like everything in the blood. And when we think about that, that is typically red and it's typically opaque. If you've ever had a wound, you might notice that the blood is sticky. If you have ever sucked on a paper cut, for example, you might notice that your blood has a metallic taste to it, and that it also might taste a little bit salty because of the sodium and the chloride ions that are found in the blood. When we look at the components of the whole blood, we can actually separate them out by using a centrifuge. And so you can take some blood and put it into a test tube. One of the things that oftentimes those test tubes have in them is they have heparin. And heparin actually prevents blood clotting. So if you've ever had blood drawn and put into a test tube, those are usually heparinized test tubes. So they prevent the blood from sticking to themselves and the clotting factors from coming out of solution. So when we do that, you'll notice that there is 3 components. The first component on top is what is referred to as the plasma. And then in between, we have what is called the buffy coat. And then at the bottom settles the heavy stuff in the blood, which would be the formed elements or the blood cells. So centrifuging it just spins it really, really, really fast. And so the heavy stuff goes to the bottom of your test tube. So if we look at the components, we can say that we have the blood plasma. So this is water plus all the solutes, everything that is in solution. That would be the plasma. This also includes those clotting factors that have not come out of solution so that there is not clotting within the blood plasma. And then we have the buffy coat. And the buffy coat is white blood cells. So these are the leukocytes. And then we have the layer of erythrocytes. So then we have the erythrocytes, which are the red blood cells. The buffy coat, those leukocytes are the white blood cells. Okay, so if we look at the normal proportion of this, you'll notice that normally the buffy coat is less than 1% of the whole blood. If there was an elevated number of white blood cells, there could be a couple of things that could cause that. Most notably, maybe you would have have an infection, and so you have an elevated white blood cell count. Also, leukemia, which is cancer of the white blood cells, would also lead to a greater than normal buffy coat. And then notice the erythrocytes. The erythrocytes make up about 45% of whole blood, but that can change depending upon the environmental conditions. So this percentage of the erythrocytes is actually what is referred to as your hematocrit. So this is a value that is taken. So this is the percent of erythrocytes. So what you would do here is you could measure the whole column, like for example in millimeters or in centimeters, right? And then you could measure the percentage of that, which is erythrocytes, and that is about 45%. So give or take about 5%. So plus or minus about 5%. And it is slightly greater in males than it is in females. And it also depends upon, say, for example, where you live. Because if you live high in the mountains at a high altitude, your body is going to actually produce more red blood cells in order to transport the lower concentration of oxygen. So as we move up onto the mountains, we have less oxygen up there, right? And so we actually produce more red blood cells. It could also depend upon if it's abnormally low, then that could actually mean that you are anemic. And that could be from a variety of things. So we'll talk about anemia in another lecture, in another lesson. So remember that this blood plasma contains things like antibodies. It's yellow in color. It contains the clotting factors, and it contains albumin, glucose, all of the things that are in